Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Hello everyone. This episode will include me making some notes. Guys, I'm sitting in a car. I'm literally experiencing that situation where the sun's hitting my left leg. I'm in the driver's seat. So I had to put a jacket over it. Anyways. So before I bring in the music, or whatever, let's go. So, today's episode has certain considerations, and it acknowledges a very important question that I think deep down we all have. And you may not have it, but at some point you may. So it's worth considering. Why am I here right now? Isn't that the question? Now, in the subtitle, I've written the scales of perception. If you're someone who truly wants to get an answer for the question, why am I here right now? It requires a dedication to not let go of this question until we found the answer. Why am I here right now? And the scales of perception and the story of humanity. So, to use an example, right, the scales of perception, pretty much you're a human being is, let's say, born. It has access to consciousness in the conscious waking state. And therefore, its capability to perceive goes in two avenues for now. One is the concept and the other is the context. Keep this in mind, whoever you are listening. This is important to learning anything, actually. Context can be considered where you put something, and concept can be considered what is it that you're putting somewhere. So when somebody says the scales of perception, we're pretty much looking at the human ability to look at the concept and the context of the conscious event through different degrees, through different scales. Right now, to simplify it, we find a human being, we find the world, and we find others. So really, there is the self, there is a perception of self. There is a perception of others. And then there's a perception that is the world. Now the situation, especially for someone who considers an existential system admin is the case that the self, and if we were to see levels to the individual as if you are not just a circle, you are a concentric circle. Whoa, what does that mean? It means that you have a body, a mind, and you have a soul, but you don't understand it, so let's just call it S for now, you know? So there's a body, mind, soul. So when it comes to the perception of self, that means you're looking at life through the scale that is based on what you know, yourself, limited to you. So what do we have? We have your physical self. Its scale is like, however the average size of the human being is. So through the perception of self it's another way of saying, like, how is my body my body? How is my mind my mind? How am I being a soul even? Really what I'm trying to say with the scales of perception thing is simply like how you're looking at it, right? From which angle you're looking at it. For someone, this world can be very small. They can act like figured it out. It's as if life is from getting from point A to point B. That's it. That could be the scale of a human being's perception. A scale of a human being's perception can be limited to various things. So in some sense, it's how I see the situation, and then there is how 8 billion other people see the world. So it's a relationship of myself and the world. Because my body is separate from the world, there we go. It's a matter of scale. Once you understand this, you could totally see Mandelbrot just took this basic idea and made it into a mathematical meaning. Gave it a mathematical position. So what that means is, for example, it's very fathomable and possible, and everything is based on scale. People are accepting things that on a macro scale they reject, but on a micro scale they're accepting. People are like, yo man, I don't believe in a God, I don't believe in an administrator of the world, yet they go to work and it's so easy for their boss to administer them. You see what I'm saying? So we have self. So let's do it this way, actually. Let's look at the human being, the dimensions of the human being. We have body, mind, soul. We look at others. Others have bodies. Others have minds. Others are souls. We look at the world, and this is very interesting because we don't consider the world to have a body. We just consider the body to be it. We consider the world to have a body, but we don't consider the world to have a mind. So the world is just real to most people as a physical thing, not as a living thing, right? I'm not talking about creatures in the world because those necessitate and those fall into the category of others. I'm saying the whole world. Like you have a body, a mind, and let's say a soul. Your neighbor has a body, mind, and soul. And now we're saying, yo, does the world have a body, mind, and soul? And so far, most people, they're considering that it's a body relationship. The world has a body, not a mind, not a soul. Let's be a good atheist. So the world could be very much alive, could have a mind, could have a world, could have a soul, yet it is not to our knowledge. So far, from a religious perspective, man is limited to the perspective that in some sense this world was created. and we were given souls, and many things were not given souls. And for example, animals, they turn into dust, like a video game console. At the end of the day of resurrection, the console finishes, all the NPCs vanish as if they never existed. Only the players who actually played the game remain, remembering. So you see, the scale is based on where you start looking at things from. If a bunch of people are in a library and an ant walks on some student's textbook who's studying, and all, let's say, the students laugh, they're like, yo, look at this ant wanting to be a doctor, and the ant is just passing this textbook, and there's the attention of higher life form. So guess what? What if we are the ant? The world is so vast that it wouldn't be surprising that intelligence has been made of a vaster nature just because we can't see it. The ant cannot understand that human beings are rallying for a politician. It's an ant. Yet the human beings understand. And human beings may not understand how worlds speak to one another through divine decree. Yet it could be there. So the scale of perception is very important. Really, if I was to answer the question, why am I here right now? For my body is to exist and to procreate. When it comes to my mind, my mind, for most people, it tends to be entertainment, and it tends to be, in some sense, like keeping the mind occupied. But really, the mind, because it's the container of ability, your mind is actually waiting to serve something more than itself. One can say, if the mind has an ability to simulate and create an internal model of reality, the mind actually is surpassing physical reality due to its ability to visualize different variations of it, right? So the mind is, like, in some sense, staring at infinity, wondering what its purpose, and it is in service. You might not believe it, but the body is immortal. Like, it's like you need to find a solution for a mortal being. The mind is not, the mind, even though it is rooted in the body, like it's starting in the body, but it's in the mind is not, the mind is treating itself as an immortal, because subjectively it doesn't need to feel the reality. So the mind is a servant. You're going to realize this if you're intelligent. What is the value of an intelligence that you only got to see? Do you see what I mean? That's why the urge is there, the urge to communicate, to give value before there is nothing to give. That is really what human beings are functioning. That's the game we're playing. So, back to the question, why am I here right now? There's so many ways to answer it. You're here for yourself, and that could include the levels of body, mind, soul. You're here for others. You're here for the world, or the actual answer, you're here to notice that there's a system admin. So it means your attention can go on yourself, others, world, or it can go to that which is beyond the world, God. So the self divided into body, mind, soul. Others have body, mind, soul. The world for now is divided into just the body. The mind and soul are in divine decree. If we say that religion, Islam, for example, tells us that the soul is the secret of God, the secret of the existential system admin. So it could be that the soul is also a secret of God, but it could be that if the world is actually a being, that means if God created the world, but the world is actually has been created to be alive, it means in the future there could be a potential contact with the world. You know, it's like communication of mind, world mind with self mind and other mind. Right now, the self and others are communicating. So the human beings on the planet are communicating with one another. They each have a physical position. They each are a soul part of a greater game, but they don't acknowledge it because they don't need to per se, because in reality, you're being tested on your faith in your position. You know, kind of being a human being through a religious context is equivalent to being like an actor on a film set and suddenly realizing you're on the film set. Now, should you sit and meditate? Should you ignore your position? Should you be like, I was never an actor? No, 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 no. You should play your part. You should play your role. There was a story that I didn't understand years ago when I said it, but now I understand. And the story is Sufi. That means I'm not saying it's real, but I'm saying like there's a moral to it. And there was evidently this alchemist who could turn lead into gold, and he went to this old shoemaker, you know, and the shoemaker's hands were shaking, but he was still working, right? And he's there waiting for the shoemaker to make this old shoemaker to make his shoe. And you know, at the end of it, while the shoemaker has gone to the room to finish it up, right, he pours something on the anvil of the shoemaker and makes it into gold. And the old man comes back and notices it and says, did you do this? And the guy's like, yeah, old man, you don't have to work a day in your life now. And the old man gets angry and he says, who told you to do this? Turn it back. Right? And the guy's like, sorry, old man, I did it out of my kindness, and like our sciences of alchemy have not evolved to a degree that I can turn it back. And the old man looks at him like, fool, don't mess with things you don't understand. And he touches it, touches the anvil, and the anvil returns back, and he continues being an old shoemaker. As if that being not only understood the secrets of reality, but that being, in some sense, didn't need. You see, that's the point of God. The moment God came into the picture, you don't need power, you don't need magic, you don't need like extreme force, because the creator is a system admin. So it's about trying to get 8 billion organisms on a rock in the middle of nowhere to realize that they're not in an empty room, that they're actually in a system. And there's a private access and public access to this system. So there's a private server and a public server, right? The public server is the life of your body. The private server is the life of your mind. You can choose to make your private server, right, public. And that's what getting to know people is, right? But on some level, we have to acknowledge that a part of the private server can never be known. That means it's called the heart. That means only God, only your creator can know what's in your heart to truly help you. You see, there could be even kind saints, kind human beings, but it is divine decree. That means the designer knows what the design needs more than anything else, regardless of the good intent. At some point, you will discover yourself to be a created being, and you will wonder about the manufacturer beyond what your eyes can convince you of. Oh, dear human beings, it's an intelligent system. Its intelligence surpasses our ability to linearize reality. This is important. Oh my God. So, why am I here right now? You are here, one, to contact the system admin. This is by far your most important task. You're existing to acknowledge the majesty and the incredible design of the Emperor of Manifestation, that which is beyond all archetypes, that which wears the world as its crown. We are in the presence of a greatness beyond worldly form. So your first task as a human being is to contact the system admin. Second task is to realize that you are being tested. So life is a performance. Get used to it. You gotta perform. That's what being a person is. That's what having a personality is. Even in far superior domains such as sales, it's like living the story you're telling. But dealing in truth is easier, way easier. So life, in some sense, why are you existing right now? To notice something. Why are you existing right now? To do something, to perform something. Why else are you existing? You see, we have something that others don't, that other species don't. And it really makes sense that we are existing here, so we use this. And what that is an ability to compare objective reality with subjective versions of reality and remodify our behavior. So what this means is that you have been bestowed with an ability to observe the value proposition that is the world. And as you observe this value proposition, which is the world, what tends to happen is, in some sense, you get to see your own, you give a value proposition yourself. This might sound bizarre, but from the moment you're born, when it comes to how you contextualize a value system for yourself, you are actually in a constant deal with reality. And oh, children of the younger generation, this is something as a shy immigrant kid I didn't understand, I'll tell you. This is your life. This is what they don't tell you. This is what all the superhero movies, all the celebrity worship, ideal worship, idol worship has made you forget, that it is your life, that it is the main event. It took me a while to understand this. Hear this from someone who made the mistake and doesn't want you to. That as life passes, there will come a day where you will look back and wonder, you could have been you. And it didn't matter. There was nothing wrong. The world that frightened us to be ourselves because we were easier to manage as something that was manageable before. You see, why did God create so many souls? Why couldn't it have just the test been a couple souls? And it's like, okay, we tested man enough. After like the first 10 generations of human beings, all right, because there is something yet to have been seen. Something, it's like a part of our performance awaits. Now, the importance of our performance is to acknowledge the audience member, and the greatest is the system admin. I am speaking to all human beings, and a majority of human beings, let's say probably like 60% of human beings right now, they're working with moderators. You have to go to the system admin. No offense to your moderator, but I don't care. It can't be a worldly form. You see, it's a direct connection. It's like it's like, yo man, what was worthy of bowing to on earth? It wasn't any worldly form. So the scale of perception is based on the immediate relationship you have. So if I'm a self in a world, that's like starting off everything else. You know, so if I'm a body in a world, there's that paradigm. I'm a mind in a event, right? In a film, and in some sense I'm a mysterious soul. That means, think about it. When God says you are a soul, and then says the soul is the secret of God, it's kind of telling us the purpose of life is not to get to know ourselves. We've been designed actually to never get to know ourselves, right? So technically, the point is to get to know the system admin. And the problem with modern spirituality is that it's an excuse for subjective self worship. Anyways, I'll keep the episode till here. Part 1. Thank you for listening. Rise, mankind. Rise in the sight of God. Glory be to God. Why? The Creator knows why the designs are there. You may not even understand why you exist right now, but that's the power of being in a system that's being administered. It's an intelligent world. The world is moving. There's a behind the scenes preservation of value. It's as if, like, yo, why am I still alive? Perhaps there's still something that God wants to see out of my soul's work. You see, the difference is, like, if you're a secular person, you're like Mr. Within. What do you mean? Like, system admin? So you're saying, like, we're in God's system, and you got to directly go to God instead of going to the moderators or members? And I'll be like, yeah, that's it. The difference is you're not in an empty room, and that there is a higher rank authority than your own conclusions on your own being. So why am I existing? Why am I here right now? I am here right now to notice the majesty of this design. To be fascinated by the architecture of the scale of reality. You think you're in a normal world? You zoom into a particle and there's another world waiting. You zoom into those particles, other worlds waiting. Worlds don't end. It's like worlds are pouring out of everywhere. Think about it. Something that's created doesn't know why it's created. So it must find its creator. In finding its creator, it's been advised that in some sense the being just continues. That means you have faith. It's like you climb a mountain and you expect to get at the top and build like a kingdom there, and you get to the top and you're like, don't worry, it's being done. So I was in the middle of trying to take responsibility for something that I realize is under the divine surveillance state. For God is the designer, that which designs the unimaginable, yet man is limited to designing the imaginable. That means it is an unimaginable creator. Literally, it's creating the unimaginable. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, all praise due to the Lord of worlds. May God forgive, the human species and all the souls on earth, and for us as souls to awaken that to this notion that we were created by the greatest, and so we will in some sense have the greatest performance. And so whoever you are, Do not get limited by worldly standards. We are proof of the greatness of our designer. The potential is there. The genius is there. That means you might not be a genius, but you are inside a system geniusly designed. Designed with imperfections for us not to get too convinced, because if it was too perfect, we'd be simulation. You see? It's so ingenious. Glory be to God. May God guide the human species towards the straight path. It's a system admin, it's real. And it's our ability to contact it is not for it to come down. That means it's like a king doesn't come down to the level of a peasant, right? So what does that mean? This means the divine is not limited to the worldly. You see, but then there are scenes where life is like it's war and a kingdom attacks another kingdom and the king is in the battlefield standing with the peasant, both equal, because the outcome, it all depends on the outcome. Will the kingdom be protected or not? There's a greatness beyond the forms that make us think that reality has to just be this or that. So think about it. Today, when you're going for a walk, when you're looking at human beings, wonder about what is the scale of their perception. What do they expect from their world? And how humble are they in the presence of their creator? Because it's not enough to just want something. It's not just hard work, it's divine decree. It's realizing where everything is going and having the authorization to go with it. It's the same. People even experience this in dating, right? You meet some people, and some people it's as if your minds are not authorized to even get to know each other. They're so different. And we live in a world that takes kindness for granted. We're living in a world where, in the future, if in advanced civilizations I envision, did you know what they would do? They got rid of homelessness in the future by, in some sense, creating a point system. So if homeless people were good citizens and they helped people, and there was a sort of happy, peaceful surveillance state, that means the homeless people, by being nice and doing good things throughout the day, helping people, right, they would in some sense accumulate points, which would in some sense translate into money. So everybody is egotistically trying to be polite and nice to get rich, right? And we're like, holy shit, we made a fake polite world, but at least it's polite. At least it has standards of its own excellence, performance. You see, that's what's missing. And something funny I realize about myself giving these talks, I'm like a soul that, I don't know why, but the world was lower than my standard, and lower than the standard of what my mind could see it be. That means I'm like that person who is like that employer who's like, if he's hiring an employee, it's like the appraisal is based it's based on just what is the potential of this human being. I've never been told to like teach someone. I've never had even someone ask me like, yo, teach me something. But when I teach, what I have learned from all the years of all the quotes I read is that you cannot teach anyone anything. You can make them see something that will fascinate them to figure it all out. And I can even give that to people in an instant, right? You want to know your soul? Let me tell you, you want to actually, whoever you are listening, you want to actually feel like contact your own soul right now, even though you're being it. Let me tell you how. I want you to think of two objects, okay? Object A and object B. You think of it yourself what these objects are. And before you decide on these two objects, who's there waiting to decide? That's the soul. The soul is what gets to see the mind. They say the space between your thoughts, it's freaking hilarious. Thoughts are like, they're like, how can I tell you? They're stimulus based. So you can think of me even creating these rhythms and these podcasts as being someone who is seeing something in his inner realms, vocalizing it. The moment I vocalize something, that leads to new imagery, and then there's more imagery, the talk can infinitely go on. But that's just a theory. So the game has changed. It's as if we're souls and we have membership to this elite event, which is called existence. We have a capable intelligence that can measure, that can calculate, that can, in some sense, what normality is what we are referring to connect to the rest, to everyone. So to be honest, you know, like we don't actually know how many nudists there are on the planet because it is normal to wear clothing. Right? That means if it was normal to be naked, it's as if, like, imagine people were different, you know? Yeah. You would walk outside naked and go inside and wear coats and jackets and everything. People are like, Mr. Within, when you go home, do you get naked? And I'm like, no, not really. You know? But I could see the appeal, you know? It's as if, how can I, it's like, you know what it is? I'm that soul privileged to speak, to say something in front of all the other souls and in front of God and in front of creation. And I'm like, God, I know the human being is doing sins. I know there's effed up stuff on the planet. I know there's an incredible ignorance of the original power of the realm. But we are a freaking hilarious species. And we are funny and cute, right? As a species, we're silly, right? And I think the creator's gonna be like, all right, guys, you did a lot of stupid shit as stupid stuff as a species. But, you know, you had what it takes. You were kind deep down. You cared. Even the most evil people of evil among you had kids and they cared for those evil kids. Do you see what I'm saying? We are positioned, and if you just for a second considered existence to be a novel, you are part of the coolest chapters of this novel. You don't understand. The fact that I am sitting here holding a pen in my hand, speaking to a global audience, and there being the potential of some sort of, you know, spark setting loose and something happening where the children of the future generations are going to be like, yeah, why isn't it so advanced? Like, it's so damn boring. Everything's looping. Everything is the same. You know, the guy woke up the first day and was like, wow, look at this beautiful nature and world. Then the second day, then the third day, then after all those days, the human being was like, okay, I saw it. I saw it. What now? You know, I'm one of those human beings that when I was young, I was convinced that I would be alone. Because it is the performance of our lifetime. You know, I'm that guy who, if they gave an option, it's like, would you want $1 billion or an opportunity to design, you know, the next advanced civilization of humanity? I would say, you know, when do I start? Or maybe a better idea would be to get the $1 billion and then start an initiative, you know. All right, guys, I'm going to go hang out on Discord for a little bit. Thank you for listening. All praise due to God. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Alhamdulillah.